I can't find anybody better than me. And so after this performance at the National Storytelling Conference, I got so much feedback. People really connected with those stories. And I was seeing that I can't give up the Mahabharata. I have to go even beyond storytelling. I have to make this Mahabharata available just to as many people as I could. And I was getting older. I couldn't continue traveling. And so I decided then and there in 2006 to work the Mahabharata into a full-length book. The book turned out to be over 281 pages. And I felt that, I have to leave something behind of my Mahabharata experience. And back in the old days, when we were doing the play and the storytelling, that was based on the empty space. You make a magical moment, a magical space for a moment, and then after the performance, it's over. But now I wasn't thinking like that. I was thinking that I know there's a few Mahabharata that devotees have already written, I thought, but I have to take my experiences and my sensibilities in drama and storytelling and create a Mahabharata based on those sensibilities, my experiences of drama and storytelling. And I also felt that the Mahabharata is very cinematic. I wanted to create a book that conveys that cinematic feeling of the Mahabharata. It's a huge epic. It's like I was reviewed later on, and they compared my Mahabharata to the Lord of the Rings, Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. So
no. You've got me wanting to get my hands on a copy now. Sorry, bro.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, now you've got me wanting to get my hands on a copy, like anything.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry that, it's very costly to send a book. For me to send, and people have ordered the Mahabharata in England, in Israel, in Australia, but it costs $25 to send the book. Do you know anybody in the United States who's planning to go to South Africa?
I'd have to really think about that.
If you hear about anybody, just let me know, and I'll be happy to send them a copy in the United States, and they could bring it to you in South Africa. So just
I could make a trip up there.
Oh, you're welcome to come here also.
Yes, I'm just thinking, Prabhu.
Some years back, your guru came to New Vrindavan, and I had the great honor and pleasure of meeting your guru, and he gave me one of his CDs. He came to my house, actually, and we spoke briefly. He's a wonderful, wonderful personality. But if you can come here, then I'll show you where he came to the house, actually, because I live in a very special house in New Vrindavan. Back in 1976, when Prabhupada visited here for the last time, he stayed in this house, and he gave darshan right outside the window, right on the front lawn of the house, every evening for 9 or 10 days. And so I often invite guests and devotees to the house and tell them a little bit about what the front lawn and the house represent. I had the good fortune, my wife and I moved to New Vrindavan in 1976 at Gaur Purnim, and Prabhupada came a few months later, and we also had darshan with him right on the front lawn of course, at that time the house didn't belong to us, but it's changed hands over the years. And my wife and I, we've had the good fortune to be able to purchase it, and we've been living here for about 25 years now in the house. But
like
if you get here to New Vrindavan, just don't let me know, or if you know somebody that's coming to South Africa or anywhere where you're at, then I'll be happy to send you a copy of my book. Don't
thank you, Prabhu.
Just let me know. But anyways,
that's very kind of you. Yeah, I was just thinking, Prabhu, before you got into the book, I was actually thinking as you were speaking around your journey on the stage in theater, and then ultimately coming to the manifestation of your book, that it sounds like a continuation of a conversation that's been going on closely here around heritage and legacy. Have you had any younger devotees or personalities who've been inspired by your work such that they've wanted to continue that kind of work?
Nobody's approached me. Over the years, I do coaching in theater, storytelling, and in writing as well. But no one has had the passion to really grab hold of any one of those avenues that has approached me. And besides devotees, also professionals have taken my coaching, other storytellers, people that want to dabble in theater. But I don't think that I find anyone with the passion to delve into theater or storytelling from the devotee side of it yet. There's a few people actually within the movement, and I think it would be a great source of livelihood for devotees, because for myself, performing in elementary schools and libraries and colleges, and just doing not only the Mahabharata, but doing multicultural storytelling in elementary schools, that's been a source of my livelihood and my bread and butter for over 20 years. Now I've kind of, that's all behind me, and I'm just focusing on my writing my books and my articles and my poetry that I'm working on.
I can relate. Having had that conversation with I'd say artists, writers, creatives in the Krishna conscious space, a lot of people are a bit reluctant to commit to such particularly not knowing what the sustainability behind of it looks like.
Of course.
But there are a lot of bodies out here now that support such initiatives. But having come into contact with Krishna Consciousness, I think early 2005, that's when I came across the devotees actually. And then my first experience with Krishna Conscious Theatre was at the annual Rath Yatra in Durban, where His Holiness Bhakti Marg Maharaj comes down and he coaches devotees within a week, and he has like a very amazing production, and it's all beautiful. It looks like something that could go on the stage at the National Theatre, but then after that it just dissipates. And I've always felt actually and found that this is something that should go on.
Down for a second. Okay, go ahead.
I've always felt that it shouldn't just die out at the Rath Yatra festival site. It should continue actually. It should go full circle, start there, go around the theater in the country or the circuit in the country, and then get back again to the Durban Rath Yatra. So I think occupying those empty spaces as devotees is something very important actually. The power of theater can't be quantified, I find.
It seems to me that some of the devotees who are musicians, they're making more inroads with some of the music and the CDs that they've created. they're making some inroads into the professional arena. That's what I've been hearing. I think there was just recently an article in ISKCON News about some devotees who are doing that.
Yes, Mantra Americana, yes.
Right. So the thing is that what we're doing is a bridge. I've always seen the theater and the storytelling and ultimately my book as a bridge, creating a bridge for people to come and begin to understand what Krishna consciousness is. So back when we performed in New York City in 1987, a theater student from NYU, New York University, came to see our performance. He didn't know we were devotees. And later on, like we were in the lobby again and people were leaving, and he struck up a conversation, and then he realized we were devotees, and he actually asked us for an interview. He wanted to interview us and write an article for his project at NYU, the theater school. So when we met him again, he told us that, whenever I see the Hare Krishnas on the street, I always cross the street and totally avoid them. But here you've made me spend $10 to come and see you in a performance art. And he acknowledged that you are creating a bridge. I really appreciate what you people are doing as far as helping to understand who you are and the diverse interests that the Hare Krishna people have. He was into theater, we were into theater. We had a common connection that he can build from. And so besides the student and the Jewish gentleman that I talked to you about earlier, there are lots of people that we connected with, or even others that we didn't connect with, that were impacted by the performances. And people in the same way, over the years, I started my book, the writing of it, in 2006, right after my performance at the storytelling performance at the storytelling conference. And it took me some years. I didn't publish it for like, I think I published it 10 years ago. That's in 2013. So this August is the 10th anniversary of the publication of my book. But the thing is, in writing the book, it was an ordeal, because I was trying to, how will I write this book to satisfy people who had no understanding of our tradition? And also, how can I write it where people from our tradition would also benefit from reading it? I wanted to kind of write it in a kind of a unique style. So my whole approach to the book is a cinematic approach. What would it look like as a movie? And so I incorporated the elements of cinematic writing, and I also incorporated the elements of storytelling, and how that worked out on the book. Because, as a storyteller, the thing is that you're only describing the situation and the story and the personalities in the story to a degree. You're only describing it very slightly. What you're doing is maybe that little description that you're giving of the characters or of the situation or of the circumstances, that has to activate the imagination in the audience. Once you activate the imagination in the audience, you don't have to describe. Like in many novels, there's so many lengthy descriptions of different things. of the characters and the clothes they're wearing and the type of day it's outside, unbelievable amounts of description in a novel. So I try to avoid that. Just a minimal amount of description and let the reader, just to activate the imagination of the reader. And so the storyteller and the listener, they create the story together. The storyteller's words and the reader or the audience's imagination. They're creating the story. I'm not creating the story myself. I'm saying enough, barely enough, to activate the imagination of the reader or the listener. I depend upon them to help me out on this. And so that's what I've done with this book. And people, I'm getting emails and letters over the years all the time. Actually, I just got a letter the other day about my new book is about Hanuman. So let me just show you this. This is my Mahabharata, and this is my book that I put out 3 years ago. It's called Hanuman's Quest, and it's all about the adventures of Hanuman in the Ramayana. And so I just got a letter the other day saying that somebody was seeing a movie about the Ramayana and about Hanuman, and they were thinking of my book. They said, I couldn't believe it, that your book conveys, it's the same, he put it on the same level as the movie, because the book leaves you with that type of an experience, watching a movie. It's fast moving, it's sensational, it's minimalistic in its descriptions of things. It's allowing the reader to participate in creating the atmosphere in the story.
Wow. I'm just thinking now in terms of writing, that's actually quite powerful to lead with the audience. So your impact on education, your book has been used in colleges, classes, and even by younger students for book reports. What has been the most rewarding aspect of knowing that your work is influencing educational environments at various levels?
Well, I see the Mahabharata. One of the reasons why I've focused on the Mahabharata is because besides the blessing that elderly sadhu gave me in Vrindavan, one of the reasons is that it's very relevant, not only in the field of education, but it's very relevant across the spectrum, across the concerns of modern society today. And some of my articles that I published in ISKCON News and elsewhere reflects the importance of studying the Mahabharata and conveying the standard and the ideas and the principles of Mahabharata to help people see how relevant the Hare Krishna movement is. And so that's what I'm trying to do, provide an understanding to the public in general, not only in the Mahabharata, but how relevant it is and in society today. Just to give you one small example, in the book, Arjuna is walking through the marketplace one morning, and then a man approaches him. The previous night, his cows were stolen, and there's a big hubbub. So many people gather around what's going on. This man is complaining about the stolen goods, his stolen cows, and the hubbub of the crowd is also getting into it, because they're telling Arjuna what his responsibility is. And this is the responsibility of the leader, that you have to retrieve the goods. You have to go out, find the culprit, whether they're doing the criminal activities on the streets of a big city, or whether they're doing the illegal activities in the skyscrapers, the offices in the different skyscrapers around the world. There's criminals at both ends. And so the crowd is telling Arjuna, as a leader, it's your responsibility to retrieve the stolen things, the cows. But if you can't retrieve them, you have to replace them. This is the weight of the leadership. But no one is standing up to that plate. No one is standing up to that standard. All the leaders, the Congress and the leaders, they're making bigger and bigger salaries every year. No one, if there is a problem with the economy, it's the leaders who are the first ones that need to cut their salaries back. And this is all coming from the Mahabharata. The heavy responsibility of the kings and the presidents and the leaders of any corporation or any position. The leaders have to bear the burden of the weight of the responsibility. They have to make the biggest sacrifices. But that's not happening in the world at large.
Yeah. So now reaching different audiences with your book. You mentioned offering Zoom presentations on your book. How do you tailor your presentations to cater to different audiences and groups? How do you...
Well, I don't know if I tailor my presentations to different groups. I just present the teachings of the Mahabharata that pop up, that I'm... The Mahabharata, of course, is 100,000 verses. And I can't claim that I've read every single word of the Mahabharata. In my own work, in developing the book, I've somehow or other, I had a 12-volume version. Now it can be attained in 4 volumes, but this is a 12-volume version of the original translation from the Sanskrit. The entire Sanskrit Mahabharata translated into English was done back in around 1890 by a gentleman named Mohan Ganguly. He was the first one to translate the Mahabharata in its entirety from Sanskrit into English. And so I used his translation, the English translation. Somehow or other, I wound up with the 12-volume set. And like I said, now it's available, I think, for $100 online, but it's a 4-volume set. It's really, those 4 volumes are really, really thick. And so what I try to do is, yes, provide a understanding how the Mahabharata is relevant. Start to consider the Mahabharata as an understanding of what's happening in modern culture. Try, and then on top of that, try to understand the Dharma. What is Dharma? And then on top of that, then you can enter into Krishna consciousness. But first, it's like a stairway. You can't deny people the first 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 steps that, they should immediately come up to the highest platform of pure devotional service. You have to show people that it's relevant in their lives today. We're not hippies, we're not dropouts in society. Most people are very much attached to society. People, when they get out of college, many people students are in debt for thousands and thousands of dollars. So, they are locked into society. It's not like in the old days, in the 60s and 70s, where people can easily, drop out of college, drop out of society, live on a bare minimal. You have collectives or communes where hippies got together and somehow managed to scrape out a living. That's not happening. That's, that's over. We have to acknowledge and address a whole different paradigm in society. And so that's what the Mahabharata does. It's amazing. For instance, a lot of people are concerned in society with the gun control. So here in the United States, some people want to give guns to anybody and everybody. But that's not what the Mahabharata says. You can't just give weapons to anybody and everybody because there's a story, Dronacharya, he is the military teacher of the Pandavas and the Kauravas. And also in the teaching, his own son is there, Ashvatthama. And Ashvatthama is seeing that Dronacharya, his father, has selected, out of all of his students, he selected Arjuna to teach him the Brahmastra weapon. He's not giving that weapon out to anybody, to everyone and anybody, right? No, he's very selective. And his son, Ashvatthama, is upset. Why are you giving this knowledge to Arjuna, but you're not giving it to me, your own son? But Dronacharya could understand that his own son was not mature enough and responsible enough to have that weapon. So this is a very deadly weapon, and it can be unleashed through sound vibration and create remarkable destruction. He didn't want to turn that weapon over to his son, who was not mature enough to understand how to use that weapon. So this is a very important thing. As somebody that comes to the age of 18 or 21, does that make them mature enough to handle these weapons, these military weapons, and just go out and kill people randomly? No, the Mahabharata would totally disagree with that stance, that any weapon is available to everyone. That's not the teaching of the Mahabharata at all. So all of these issues that people are concerned with today are very relevant. They're found in the Mahabharata. What can I say? So in whatever Zoom programs I'm doing, sometimes I'm doing programs for college students or for yoga groups, or I've done a couple of Zoom programs for book clubs that are studying my book. I just try to present it to the best of my abilities and to make it relevant. That's the main thing that I want to show, is that the Mahabharata is relevant. And once the Mahabharata is relevant in people's lives, then they can understand maybe how Dharma is relevant, and ultimately how this spiritual knowledge of Krishna consciousness is also relevant. So it's a stepping stone. My approach, it's not the hippie days. It's not where people are going to drop out of school. My friend Lokamangala, the famous actor in ISKCON, he said to me that he didn't give up meat until the day before he moved into the temple. Some people are giving up meat, or some people are giving up college. Whatever they're doing, they met the devotees, and within a matter of days and within a matter of weeks, they had joined the temple. We're not going to find that today. Yeah. It's a very, very rare person that would make that move today. That you meet the devotees, and within a matter of days or weeks, then you become committed to Krishna consciousness. That's a very rare personality. that's going to do that in our social and economic climate today.
That's very true. I'm actually thinking now, like the difficulties we're having here in Southern Africa, kind of bridging the gap, presenting Krishna consciousness to, you could say, the larger African community, where the work of the political landscape has done remarkably well at separating people, to the point of where this knowledge, Krishna conscious knowledge, is seen as something Indian altogether. So the minute you try to present it or share it, it's rejected. So I'm thinking using theater would be something very powerful. I'm just thinking about
Yes.
Mahabharata like that. Like usually when I can't sleep, I just put it on. I put on an audiobook and I just get lost in there, you know. My wife and I, we like listening to the Mahabharata a lot.
And how old are you now, if I may ask?
I just turned 42 this February.
Really? You look very youthful for 42.
Oh, thank
so,
you.
But you know, I think, like you mentioned, you need to use whatever propensities that you naturally have. You can, with those propensities, you can begin to create bridges for other people. So there's a mutual element there. You know, you make friends, there's a mutual element. If you're into poetry, they're into poetry. Or if you're into music, they're into music. So that's one way to perpetuate and generate Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada calls it, you have to find the needle. Find your own needle. Your needle may be different than my needle. What are your interests? You find the needle and you go in like a needle. And of course, Prabhupada says you come out like a plow. But so, you know, it doesn't have to be as drastic as a plow. But at least the idea that you enter like a needle, it's very moderate, very understated. And that could be through our different propensities, this is called Swadharma. In Krishna, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains there's Dharma on a much higher level, but Swadharma is what is our propensities? Who are we as individuals? What type of contribution do we want to make to the world following our individual propensities? And that is, like you've struck upon, that's a very important element in presenting Krishna consciousness in our social climate today. So true. But the first thing Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita says, we're not the body. So in one sense, we have to educate people. You know, you're not black, you're not white, you're not man or woman, you're not Chinese and Russian, etc., etc. You're not Republican, you're not Democrat. All of these people, their minds are absorbed with these different designations, especially here in America. Democrat, Republican. To the Democrats, the Republicans are demons. To the Republicans, the Democrats are demons. But Prabhupada said, you know, get out of this political mindset. You know, it's ruining our mentalities and it's ruining our ability to transmit Krishna consciousness to everyone and anyone. Because Prabhupada says that the first step in political life is you create enemies, you create friends, and you create enemies. Who are your friends? Who are your enemies? That designation has to be made in political life. And that's what people are doing. And even devotees are doing that. So the thing is, Prabhupada says, you got to give that up. You have to get beyond the designation of friends and enemies. That's a mundane designation. If you want to really be effective as a preacher, you have to become free from all designations and show other people how they can become free from all designations. So this is a very vital knowledge that Prabhupada is giving us. And rather than condemn or complain or criticize what other people are doing because of their bad habits, we have to break through all of that and really help them in their Krishna consciousness. We have to be a friend to everyone. This is your ever well-wisher. That's Prabhupada. That's the way he ended his letters. And we also have to take up that mantle, that mission. We have to become people's ever well-wishers too, not condemn people in society. And I see that that's going on a lot, even amongst devotees. Stop condemning people. And Prabhupada says, we've become fortunate, now go out and make others fortunate. That's it. So I really appreciate your work. And I, if you ever just want to talk again, I'd be happy to discuss whatever you like.
Actually, I'm thinking
final thoughts or questions? I don't want to take up too much time. We're almost over an hour, but go ahead. Do you have any final one or two questions?
I just wanted to close with our last question, actually.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just looking at future plans and reflections. With the 10th anniversary of your book's publication, could you share your reflections on the impact it has had and the journey it has taken on you? And second to that, what can readers and your audience look forward to in your upcoming book? How will it, your second book, how will it build up the foundation you've established with your current work?
Well, I have a total of 3 books out.
3 books.
One book is almost out of print now, the stories from ancient India, and then the Mahabharata, and then the Hanuman quest book. And so I do have a couple of other projects lined up besides my poetry and my articles that I'm writing. 2 books. One of them I've been working on for a couple of years now. Oh, well, actually, both of them I've been working on back and forth for a couple of years. And one of them is centered around Chaitanya. So there's books out by devotees about Chaitanya, but my approach is going to be a little different. And that's, I don't want to say too much more about that. I'm hoping to have it finished maybe this time next year. So, when you're writing a book, and especially if you're trying to do a lot of research, it takes several years to really stay with a story and enter into the story and how to share that with others. That was my great anxiety with the Mahabharata. Sometimes it was a very ecstatic experience that I was having, figuring out how to present a particular story, a particular chapter in my book, and then the next chapter had to build up. What you're doing is in a book or whatever you're creating, there's 2 things. You're giving information on one hand, but then also you have to learn how to withhold information so the reader becomes curious enough to continue reading. You have to withhold some of your information until the next chapter. That will be a decisive thing for the reader to want to continue. And in the next chapter again, you have to give information and you have to withhold. Okay, I'm going to withhold this until later on. So this is one thing about writing, is to know when to give information and when to withhold information. So, but for me, it was, on one hand, it was a very ecstatic experience. But on the other hand, in writing the Mahabharata was such a grave responsibility that I felt an anxiety a lot. I was experiencing some ecstasy and a lot of anxiety. how can I, I'm not qualified, how can I actually deliver this story to a reader? What can I really do? And there was one point when I became so discouraged, I stopped working on the Mahabharata for almost an entire year. I didn't know how to go on. I just felt helpless, but somehow or other I was pushed along to complete it, and I'm happy that I did, and I've gotten a lot of tremendous feedback. So I'm working on a similar thing about Chaitanya, and another book that I'm working on, that I've been working on both of these books are maybe about halfway finished. And the other book is called In Search of Story, because over the years, besides storytelling that I do, I also offer a workshop called In Search of Story. And that helps people explore some of the stories in their own life's journey. What their accomplishments are, what their challenges are, what they did when they was a child, and some of the issues they had as a child, how is that connected to their work as an adult? So it's not my presentation, my workshop is not like a psychological presentation. It's one based on finding the creative elements of your life. You know, so sometimes people will think, oh, is this something to do with the psychological exploration? No, not at all. It's a exploration into our creativity and who we are and what we can offer. So that exploration is based on finding some of the neglected stories and the pivotal points in our lives. So what created some situation was created for you to pursue this path rather than that path. You know, Robert Frost has this poem, The Road Not Taken, beautiful poem. So that's, in one sense, that's my workshop that I've been doing on and off over the years, both for people in general, and I've done it for devotees as well. But now I'm putting that workshop into a form of a book. And part of it is my personal experiences and realizations, and part of it is exercises that the reader can do to tap into some of those same thoughts and same kind of challenges. Different exercises that I give to help the reader along understanding their life's journey. So that's what I'm working on right now.
I'm just thinking, wow, that's say, you know, with all the people I've been meeting since I took up this service, I've just been repeating this one thing, that since my Guru Maharaj left, meeting all these personalities is almost, in fact, I find and I feel that it's an extension of his mercy. And this particular opportunity to meet Your Grace and listen to you and talk to you about creativity, writing, expressing oneself in Krishna consciousness, and that has been the most powerful to date. I really appreciate this time that you've given me.
I'm also honored to meet you as a representative of your Guru, and like I admire him very, very much in what he's done for the Hare Krishna movement.